Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. My name is Reina Montoya. It's been a rough Friday so far. I'm going to let Jose introduce himself.
Yeah, no, I think it started off like a good Friday. We got some fall, so that was good. And then later on in the afternoon, we got the decision by Judge Andrew Hanen in Texas. So trying to process all that stuff and do everything that we can.
So we are live today from Facebook and from Instagram. So if you see us kind of like switching sides, we're trying to kind of, what's the saying, kill two birds with one stone, and trying to really get people informed about the decision coming on DACA today from Judge Hanen. We'll be doing this live completely in Spanish afterwards. We've been getting so many questions that we want to make sure that we're informing as much as we can. Friendly disclaimer, Jose and I are not attorneys. We've been in communication with attorneys that have supported us. Big shout out to Delia Salvatierra and so many other folks who have been answering questions for us to making sure that we're able to give you the latest. But as I said, we're gonna go through today breaking down what happened, what are the implications for DACA recipients like Jose and I, for undocumented students or young people who were applying for DACA for the first time and were in the pipeline, meaning that they had a pending application. So we're going to be kind of like going through what happened today and the implications for impacted folks and what can you do now and how can you prepare moving forward. Does that sound good, Jose? Anything that I'm missing?
No,
Vamos a hacer esto completamente en español después de este live en inglés para contestar lo que pasó con DACA. Entonces, si tienen algunas preguntas, si quieren esperarse al próximo o si quieren practicar su inglés, se pueden quedar acá. I was just saying that we're going to be doing this completely in Spanish afterwards. And if you have questions, if you're seeing this, feel free to put them in the chat. And Diego in the back end, it's really trying to help us support us with the questions on Instagram and on Facebook. So feel free to like, if we haven't answered, ask again and we'll try to get that since we're kind of double tasking here. Okay, so Jose, let's break it down. Let's start very, very simple. What happened today? What did Judge Hanan's ruling said? Please try to like make it as accessible as possible. I know sometimes legal terminology really matters, but if we can kind of like do the one-on-one version.
um, just a little bit, as you know, Judge Hanen is infamous in immersion circles for stopping the implementation of the DAPA program in 2015 and also the DACA extension program, which would open up the DACA program for more people. So there's this thought that most of us have were thinking that was going to be a negative ruling from his court. So it basically states that he believes the DACA program is unlawful because it didn't follow the Administrative Procedure Act. The DHS didn't follow what implemented. However, he didn't fully terminate the program. It's just like partial, because what he said is that if you have had DACA in the past, you can send DHS can process and approve renewals. However, if you have never had DACA in the past and it's a new application, it would put a hold. So those applications will not be processed.
So he still said technically just I told Jose not to go on the legality and he still did it. He can't help himself. But just to kind of even maybe you want to hear it in another way. I know that sometimes I get lost with some of the legal terminology. Is that in essence, Judge Hanen said that the DACA program is not constitutional, like it's unlawful. That's another word to say it. But what Jose mentioned super clear is that if you are a DACA recipient, meaning that you already have your employment card or your approval notice, you can still continue to renew. If you were someone who was applying for DACA for the very first time, meaning you've never received an approval notice or an employment or a work permit, that means that you you will kind of be put on hold or your application will be put kind of like in the freezer, meaning that it won't even be approved or denied as of now. Things can change because litigation, it's a little bit confusing and it takes time, but as of now, it's gonna be kind of put on a hold. Is that correct? Did I get it right, Jose?
Yeah, until further notice. They are potentially appeals that could happen in the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. This is in Texas. The United States judiciary system, all the courts are broken down into different circuits depending on geographical location. Typically, the most conservative is the Fifth Circuit. They tend to be the ones who rule typically against immigrants. So I think it's, if it goes to appeals, it doesn't look good for us. If it goes to the Supreme Court, you just don't know. You got to see how it progresses.
Let's remember the hierarchy, as Jose mentioned. Judge Haynen, it's a federal judge that can make these decisions out of Texas, and then it goes. This is the Texas court, and then it goes the regional court that Jose mentioned, Fifth Circuit, and then there would be a process there that can be an appeal process, and then it can technically go all the way to the Supreme Court. So that's kind of like a little bit of the stagger and the layers for people to kind of know the process, and this can take months, as we were able to see it with the first DACA case when it went to the Supreme Court. Let's remember, I think Jose already mentioned that this is a different lawsuit. So you might be wondering, I thought that we had already resolved this at the Supreme Court. Well, we resolved what Jose mentioned, the administrative side of things. This lawsuit was based on the constitutionality of the DACA program. So it's two different legal arguments in essence. Did I get it right, Mr. Fax?
Yeah, well, one of them, the first one, the previous one was that the Trump administration didn't follow procedures when they ended the program. And this one is when DHS implemented the program, they didn't follow the procedures. So I think it's a lot of in perspective and how the judges see things. But yeah, that's where we're at.
Two different arguments. If you get confused, two different arguments. That's why we're starting the process in a way all over again.
Yeah, and I think one of the things is that the advanced parole, people don't necessarily know what's going to happen in terms of people who are outside of the country who apply advanced parole. And if it's advanced parole is still open, I think we're waiting for more guidance from DHS and USCIS.
So DHS, Department of Homeland Security, so they, USCIS, the ones that process the DACA applications. So they would be coming up typically after a decision like that. They will talk about the implementation and the rollout. So that's what we're waiting in terms of advanced parole. So far, we're getting kind of mixed reviews on advanced parole. That is like, if you have a DACA recipient who's renewing, it should still be okay and good to go. But as I said, we haven't received the further information from USCIS or the Department of Homeland Security. So Jose, I'm going to be asking you a couple of questions that we've been getting so far. The first question is, what happens if I already sent my initial DACA application, but it has not been approved? Like, would they still process it? What's going to happen with it?
So DHS can accept new applications. They're not allowed to process or approve them. So let's say you already submitted, it's just going to be put on hold, put on a file, and basically set to the side until further guidance whether to approve them, process them, or deny them.
And this is only for new applications, not for renewals, just to clarify. We're getting a question from the audience saying, how come, why did this happen? Why was DACA put on hold?
Well, actually, this is the lawsuit that sort of the threat. 13 states led by Texas in 2017 sent a letter to then President Trump saying that the DACA program was unlawful. So therefore, Trump needed to end it and rescind it. And this is what the rationale that the Trump administration used to terminate the program in 2017. So what happened is they did follow through in 2018, and they did sue. So it's basically, this is the genesis of started it all. And it's just, they're different procedures. And I think that's why there's a lot of frustration with folks, because the previous lawsuit was challenging whether the DACA, the way that Trump ended the DACA program was lawful. This is challenging whether the program itself is lawful. So it's two different arguments. And I think that's why a lot of us are somewhat frustrated, because I think this puts a lot of onus on Congress, because ultimately, is if you have something permanent, then these lawsuits will not happen. And it feels like you're just having a lot of political football. Parties are throwing you one way or the other, so then they can make an argument, so they can get elected, and keep talking about us, and we keep living in this limbo.
Oh, I have to take a deep breath with that, Jose. It's a lot, and I think that we've been checking in with some of our folks that have been submitting their DACA, and we're still pending with their application. So definitely, like, know that you're not alone. And as we continue to navigate this, we have a bunch of questions that I'm gonna continue to ask Jose and clarify. But know that you're not alone. And even after this live, maybe you're seeing it later. Don't forget that you can always send us a message. We have a hotline. We also have a DACA toolkit that you can see the latest updates on that. And we'll be informing you with the latest updates. But definitely be on the lookout on our social medias for anything that is to come. So the next question that I have, what if I qualify for DACA? Can I still send my DACA application for the first time?
Yeah, you still can send it. And again, DHS is allowed to accept your application. Some attorneys have told us they do recommend people to send it. And the reason why is because now you're in the system. And then it also, so therefore, if something happens and changes for the positive, then your application get processed. As we know, a lot of us have been frustrated with the current administration, because it's taking more than 7, 8 months to process applications. And we have now over 81,000 applications in backlog, because specifically DACA, because of their inability to staff that department. And additionally, it allows us to put the pressure on the Biden administration, as well as Congress, that we have thousands, tens of thousands of applicants who are waiting to be approved. So,
Just, oh, sorry. I thought you were done.
but it
You're
is,
like, dun, 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 dun.
yeah, but it's also a personal matter, because we also know that it's $500 that oftentimes people seek support. So that also becomes expensive. So it's ultimately a personal decision. But this is what attorneys have advised us, and this is what we also believe.
So just to super clarify though, you can submit the application, personal decision. Just know that it's gonna be again put on hold, meaning that they cannot make a decision on your application. They will not either approve it or deny it. But as Jose mentioned, there's benefits to it. Some of the pros. If something changes in the positive in the courts, then your application is already there. You don't have to worry about it. Two, it would put pressure on Congress and this administration to do something about it. Cons, it's $495. So I know that that can be really tough. So that's really up to you to decide. We're just kind of telling you what some of attorneys that we work with have been recommending. Okay, I think we're good with that question, right? So let's move into the other question. The next question is, what will happen to advance parole for approved DACA renewals?
And this is where I think we're looking for a little more clarification. Again, advance parole is mentioned a lot in the decision, but it's not. There's not a core specifically saying advance parole is closed or advance parole remains open. So for right now, we're waiting for guidance. And it's probably going to take a little bit longer, just because it's a Friday. Offices are closed. You probably have to wait until Monday, or maybe even Tuesday. So that's the frustrating part, because this is done on a Friday evening, when in the East Coast most offices are closed. That's where the capital is at. That's where USDA's headquarters is at. So that's frustrating. So I think for now is we just don't know.
Okay, Jose, many people are in our boat as well. There's people like you and I who currently have DACA. I'm actually getting ready to renew my DACA in August in order for me not to get caught up in not having status. Can I still renew? Can people that are in my same situation renew their DACA?
Yeah, so those of us who have had DACA in the past, or currently in the DACA program, are able to renew. So for example, if you had DACA, let's say in 2000, like you had DACA last year and it expired for a year, you're still able to renew. It's just closed for new applicants, which part of it is really cruel, because the majority of new applicants are 17, 18, 19, 20 years old, people who are about to graduate from high school or just entering college and are trying to build a new life, and are thinking of, hey, I want to travel abroad. I want to be eligible for the scholarship. I want to be able to drive, be able to work to support my family. It's really frustrating because it's basically shutting the door on these people before it opens up when there was a glimmer of hope. So for me, that's extremely cruel by the judge, as well as the state, specifically Texas, specifically Attorney General Paxton, who has been leading this effort. And again, it's just very frustrating.
So just to clarify, yes, you can still renew as of now. Things can change. So if they do change, we'll let you know. But as of now, you can still renew. And then let's say that for whatever reason uh, your DACA expire and you haven't been able to renew it. Let's say that it expired a month ago, or even a year ago, or even 2 years ago, and you, for whatever reason, didn't have the opportunity to renew, you can still submit. You can still submit an application, and you should be able to get approved. If you have any problems of like in terms of renewals, and you are not getting either an answer after the 6 months, or you feel that it got denied for whatever reason, please contact us. We do work with a lot of congressional offices, not only in Arizona, but nationwide. So if there's a specific problem with your renewal application, please let us know so we can be monitoring that as well.
Yeah, it's frustrating because, hey, we paid our money for the application for them to do their job, and the guidance is within 120 days, 150 days, right? We're almost in August. People submitted them in December, and a lot of those have not been processed. So the government is not doing their job when we're doing ours. It's just extremely frustrating because it impacts people's lives, people's livings, and now a lot of folks are having their children. So that's even more, another extra level of anxiety and stress, unnecessary brought on because the current administration has refused to staff this department in this program.
In a timely matter, right? We just heard last week that the Biden administration was gonna increase the staffing for specifically for DACA applications. But look at this, we're a week after this, a little too late that it came that, because then now we have still over 80,000 folks who are still waiting. And now because of this new decision coming out of Canaan, out of Texas, they're not gonna be able to decide whether they would be approved or denied.
Yeah.
So moving into the next question, Jose, we have a lot of questions, and I know you have a lot of feelings. I have a lot of feelings. I'm trying to keep my feelings a little bit, maybe for therapy. But it's okay for you to share your feelings. I'm not trying to shame you. I just cut myself. But we have a lot of questions. Let's try to get through.
I can go on rant for hours. That's what you're saying. I'm not messing around.
Okay, Mr. Patino. So the next question is, what if I applied already for the first time and I already got my biometrics appointment? What do I do? Do I go? Do I not go? What happens?
We recommend that you do go to the appointment if it's not rescheduled or not canceled. Again, that means then USCIS will now have your biometrics. So therefore, if the program opens up again or any other system, they already have the information, they can process it. The other part of it is that, well, it just completes more of the process, and you're better suited for whatever happens, whether you're able to actually, knock on wood, get Congress to actually pass something permanent, or if the program reopens in the future, it just allows, it's already in the system, might as well do it.
Thank you, Jose. The other question, again, going back to advanced parole, one person is asking, is it safe to submit for advanced parole, or should we wait? What should we do? I was thinking of maybe applying for advanced parole, and I have DACA. What do I do?
Again, this is the sort of gray area and difficult because there's no official guidance. So I think we're gonna wait and ask the DHS for clarification.
This is not legal advice. Me, like DACA recipient to a DACA recipient, I would suggest for you to wait from the guidance from USCIS, because every time that you leave the United States, things can become a little sticky and mushy. So if you want to play it safe, I would definitely wait. If you're doing it because of a humanitarian reason, knock on wood, hopefully not. Like, I know that decision becomes a little harder rather than if it was for work or for study abroad programs, but that's something that is definitely within your discretion, but that is a great area. So if you want to play it on the safe side, I would recommend to wait. And that's my doggy. I think he's even mad at Judge Kanan too. It's like, this guy making our parents, our for parents work on Friday.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think the laughter sometimes is a relief.
Yeah.
But I think that we're having another question. I think that I see Instagram. I think it's from Eva. She says, "Will first-time applicants be considered to be legal status, or though the application is put on hold?" That's a great question.
So technically speaking, no, because DACA gives you legal presence when you've been approved. So if people are not approved, they would still be considered undocumented or without lawful immigration status.
So yeah, DACA gives you legal presence, but if you haven't received that approval notice, unfortunately, the answer is no. So that's a little bit of recap in case if you are kind of like, that's too much information, things that to know. Renewals still prevail. So if you have ever been approved for DACA, you can still renew it. You can still apply for it, even if your work permit has expired. Unfortunately, this is like super hard. I'm trying really hard not to cry because there's been a lot of people, even within the Aliento community, that we've been supporting, um, get all their documents ready. Unfortunately, as of now, your application, it's not gonna be processed for an approval or a denial. So it's gonna be, as I said, kind of frozen, put on hold until further notice. And I think that those are the biggest things that are coming up for today from Judge Haynen. I think that's something that Jose mentioned, like, where do we go from here? What happens next? It is extremely important that Congress acts. As a DACA recipient, it's really hard to just one process all this news, process the emotions, knowing how we're feeling about it. I can even imagine how DACA applicants, people who were applying for the first time, are feeling. I know we were checking in with some of them, and it's been devastated for many of us. But right now, Congress has a responsibility to act and provide certainty for us. At the end of the day, the courts are going to continue to be in litigation, and it's going to be, I feel like, ping pong that they're playing with our lives. So the only thing that we have is for Congress to act on it. So if you're in Arizona, calling your senators, Sinema and Kelly. If you are in New York, calling Mr. Schumer, that has a lot of power. He rules the agenda of Congress right now, of Senate, I should say. Be technical, like Mr. Fax. But all over, like, if you don't know how to do that, let us know and we'll guide you to make sure that you know who your senators are. But definitely that's something to be on the lookout, and making sure that the Senate prioritizes getting a permanent solution for undocumented youth and dreamers.
Yeah, and I think the other part that we have to consider is, while Trump is no longer in office, his lifetime appointments in the courts, because presidents get to appoint federal judges, whether it be the lower courts as well as the Supreme Court, they're going to be here for a while, for decades to come, centuries, yeah, decades, not centuries.
Tampoco, this guy, they won't live that long. Anybody does. You can live beyond a century. Anyways, we're digressing.
Yeah, they're going to be there. And I think the Supreme Court looks different now than it did last year, because sadly, Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away. Now she was replaced by another individual who tends not to be aligned typically with immigrants. So this is where the courts are going to be. So it's going to be really difficult to focus on the courts. And so far right now that we know, only DACA has been ruling on DACA. I think there are other legal court cases for other programs. So potentially TPS, asylum. There's other parts that of the whole immigration system that are in danger. And again, this is why it's so important when you have presidents, because they get to appoint judges for lifetime appointments, and they get to interpret the laws and policies. And it's extremely dangerous. Yeah, I'll stop.
Okay, well, as I said, right now, the the things that we're recommending for you is to make sure that you're taking care of yourself, making sure that you're drinking water, making sure that you're checking in with your loved ones. You're not alone. I know that these things can be very, very confusing. So just know that you're not alone. We have a mental health toolkit that I'm going to ask Diego to please put on. We also have some group therapies that we already launched. We're trying to get more group therapies for next week as well, since I know that this can be really emotional to constantly be in a roller coaster of uncertainty and unknowns. And then contact your senators, making sure that they feel the pressure, that there's so many of us who have been suffering from this, and it's not fair. So we are going to be wrapping up. If you see this video later on, make sure that you are sending us questions. We have also a DACA hotline. So if you have questions, make sure you go to our toolkit. The DACA hotline number is there. So Diego, if you can put the links both on Instagram and Facebook, that would be great. And let us know if you have anything coming up. I know that as we are wrapping up, we have a couple of last questions. I think that Jose, you already answered them. So I'm just gonna reiterate, if you applied back in January for the first time, should you be worried? If you have not received an approval notice, I wouldn't say you should be worried, but you should know the fact that if you haven't received an approval notice, even though if you applied in January and February or even December, your application is going to be put on hold. So then there's not going to be an approval or a denial until further notice. And then,
well, the last thing they recommend is for people to check their case status on USCIS website, because we just found out one of the individuals that we helped out, he hadn't gotten approval through a mail, like a letter through the mail, but he checked earlier today on the website, he was approved. So maybe a couple of you might have gotten approval. So make sure to check the website to check your status.
if you don't know how to do that, you can message us on the DACA hotline number. We can walk you through it, but it's super simple. You just go to USCIS.gov, and the only thing that you will need is just receipt number that you got when you started the process. So then you put it in, and then you check your status, and you're able to see if you were approved. We also got one of the people that we were helping to apply for DACA, they got approved today. If you got approved today, if you're in the same circumstances as this DACA applicant, then it should be valid even though if you haven't received your work permit, if you got your approval letter, or if it says that it got approved today in the internet, you should be good to go. But I think that this is a wrap. We still have to do the Spanish one, Jose. So okay. I think that this is a lot of information. Feel free to rewatch the video, share with a friend, send us questions on the DACA hotline. We do manage the DACA hotline as people, so please be patient with us. We're trying to do the best that we can. So I hope you all take care of each other and just know that you're not alone, and we're a community, and we're gonna get through this because we have no option. So we'll get through this. I'm a firm believer one way or another, and it's okay for you to cry. It's okay for you to feel any emotions that you have. Just know that you don't have to do that in isolation. So we'll be in touch. Take care. Sending you all lots of love and hugs, and we'll be doing this in Espanol. So take care. Bye.